Live on television, under the glare of studio spotlights, the audience erupts in laughter, a reaction prompted by the host, famous for her witty and often sarcastic remarks. And with a self-satisfied smirk, she taunts Keanu Reeves' beliefs, questioning them with a dismissive "You, Keanu, do you truly think there's a higher power looking out for you? Especially considering all you've endured." More laughter erupts as the camera cuts away, leaving Keanu silent. He softly cradles the small cross pendant resting against his chest, his gaze serene and unwavering. Unfazed, he remains silent, offering no resistance, no counterargument. He simply feels, and then a strained voice interjected, unaware that the host was about to encounter a moment that would be nothing short of transformative. Question her beliefs about faith, potentially transforming her life. Keanu Reeves is more than just a Hollywood star. He's a reflection of someone who has endured the loss of it all, yet remains steadfast. Due to renown, not power, but because of a pursuit the world attempted to scoff. That night, faith urged us to persevere until the very end, eager to witness the unfolding of this narrative. Let's get started, and before we dive in, be sure to let us know in the comments what part of the world you're joining us from. We love getting your feedback, and always make sure to read every message you send. The studio was bathed in the bright glow of arena-style lighting, with crisscrossing lights overhead casting reflections. From the polished black walls, the audience erupted in applause and cheers, a wave of excitement buzzing through the room. A sense of eager expectation, as if poised to see a comedy performance, a scandal, or perhaps even a combination of both. The show was infamous for its controversial humor, sarcastic interviews that resembled verbal sparring matches, and a host who entered each interaction as if it were a verbal duel. As the lights dimmed and the crowd roared, ladies and gentlemen, a true talent took the stage, an actor and producer. A motorcycle enthusiast, a living legend, and seemingly a man of simple monastic habits. Met with a storm of applause, the legend, Keanu Reeves, was greeted by roaring cheers. The sound were overwhelming, but Keanu entered with composed steps, wearing dark jeans and a black blazer. A plain t-shirt adorned his frame, with a cross necklace discreetly hanging from his neck, serving as a subtle accessory. In contrast to the rest of his simple attire, it stood out, but it felt like it conveyed something more profound. He acknowledged her with a nod and a gentle smile, making no haste, no flamboyant display, as he settled into his seat. Like someone who had traversed numerous chapters in their life, this was merely another one. The initial inquiries followed a predictable trajectory, focusing on his career and recent films, with Keanu also sharing behind-the-scenes anecdotes. With a delicate and measured pace, the mood remained cheerful. The audience chuckled, but slowly. Just like every time on this program, the mood started to change. Keanu, the host, remarked with a mischievous glint. "You've got this grounded vibe, almost spiritual. But tell me something, do you truly hold on to faith in miracles, considering all the cinematic spectacles Hollywood has presented, despite all that life has taken away from you?" The audience erupted in laughter, but Keanu's expression remained unchanged. His eyes held a calm, yet thoughtful gaze. He didn't. He responded with an immediate, profound silence, the most spiritually resonant kind. In response, the host quipped, eliciting more laughter as Keanu modestly lowered his. For a fleeting moment, his fingers delicately caressed the cross necklace. It was a nearly imperceptible gesture, yet brimming with significance. The camera subtly focused in on. The cross gently oscillated with the rhythm of his hand, and he subsequently raised his gaze. Quietly, directly, there was no reply, only a sense of presence. The conversation continued nonetheless. More humorous takes on spirituality, laced with wry observations about religious doctrine and faith as a means of emotional refuge. The audience erupted in laughter once more, but an undercurrent of change had settled over the atmosphere. A subtle crack had appeared in the show's usual flow, and then came a direct question. Do you truly believe there's a higher power looking out for you? Keanu remained silent for a moment. The audience held its breath. It was a critical juncture, one misspoken word and heed. Perhaps if the statement became a viral sensation, but if the words held truth, maybe that night would witness a shift. Then he spoke in a composed voice, faintly audible, barely a murmur. If I managed to remain upright after all this, it wasn't merely chance. It descended with the impact of stone tossed into tranquil water, creating a spreading ripple of a hush fell over the room, silencing the laughter as people began to. They looked at each other, their gazes conveying an unspoken question. Did you sense that as well? The camera then shifted its focus back to the necklace. The cross now felt weightier, more substantial, no longer just a symbolic ornament. The host attempted to change the mood with a new joke, but the response was weak. Something had undeniably altered. Keanu sensed it. Remained steadfast, always non-confrontational, never retreating, simply observant and present in the moment. It became clear that on that show, Keanu's cross would be more than just a symbolic representation. It would serve as the catalyst for a pivotal moment, one no one was prepared to see. The studio lights softened subtly as the discussion progressed, the atmosphere in the room having noticeably changed since Keanu's understated statement. What had started as a normal evening of enjoyment was now caught in an unsettling limbo, straddling the line between unease and, despite a strained smile, the host leaned in, determined to salvage the situation. The atmosphere hadn't unfolded as she'd hoped, but she wasn't ready to give up. So, Keanu, let's delve into the realm of religion, given our current context, and the audience erupted in laughter once more. But not with the same ease she had previously enjoyed, her voice now taking on a more lively and animated quality as she began to speak. Her words dripped with sarcasm, a fact you couldn't miss. You know what I always say, she smirked, implying something biting beneath her words. Religion serves as a sort of fairy tale for those who are afraid to mature, offering comfort through its notions of a divine plan. But the laughter, though not genuine, was growing stronger now, with a few people even clapping along. It was evident. As they eased back into the familiar rhythm, Keanu remained unfazed. He didn't react with any visible signs, not even a twitch, a roll of his eyes, or a shift in his posture. He simply didn't. He merely held the cross once more, without squeezing it tightly, without any display or fanfare, just as he pressed his fingers against the surface, as if seeking stability, the camera captured the moment. Once more, his demeanor displayed no panic, nor any hint of defensiveness, just a hush fell over the audience as they relished the humor. The screen imperceptibly started to change, and then a narrator's voice intervened. Delicate, contemplative, and reserved, what the world perceived on that stage was a man was undergoing a test, but unbeknownst to them, the path that brought him to this point remained unseen. The screen dissolved into a series of grainy, grayscale images, revealing glimpses of Keanu's history. A funeral scene unfolds, with a miniature casket at its center. Keanu stands beside it, clad in black, his posture rigid and unmoving. A fleeting glimpse of an empty hospital corridor, a hazy snapshot of him clasping hands with. Years after the events in a subway car, Keanu stands alone, gazing out the window, unseen by anyone else. A book rested on his lap, untouched, a testament to the profound grief of his daughter's absence. The loss of his partner, his closest friend, had occurred, and yet, through it all, he never allowed himself to. His essence was defined by bitterness, yet his grief transformed into grace. His silence took on the shape of a prayer. The montage stopped, then genuine voices took over, sharing unscripted, unfiltered testimonies, a raw and unvarnished ride share. The driver gave me $500, and I figured it must have been a mistake. He just grinned and said, Your kindness is something the world desperately needs more of. A woman whom I spotted him with at a gas station. When my car started overheating, he went above and beyond. He didn't just offer assistance, he stayed with me for a full hour. The cameras were there, no need to rush. A fan was sobbing in the street, and he calmly sat down beside her. He understood my situation. He didn't inquire about the reason for my tears. He simply listened patiently. Even in the studio, the host persisted in their attempts to elicit a response, resorting to quoting Bible verses with dramatic flair. Imitating the style of ancient sermons, it is declared, "The humble shall possess the earth." Yeah, well, good luck with that, she chuckled. The audience responded, though, with a sense of unease grew. Something felt wrong. The room had lost its previous vibrancy, replaced by an unsettling quiet punctuated by long, awkward silences. Amidst the laughter, Keanu maintained his silence until the host addressed him once more. Now, a hint of frustration laced her tone. "You're really not going to say anything," she pressed. "Do you actually think?" That night, for the first time, Keanu locked eyes with her, and she felt a sense of protection from someone watching over her. His eyes held no sharpness, only a profound depth, and then he began to speak. "If I'm still here, if I'm..." Remaining steadfast despite all that had transpired, it wasn't just an appearance. The audience fell silent for the second time that evening. The energy shifted, not into boredom, but into a profound sense of respect. Even the cameras appeared to move more slowly. It wasn't merely his words it was the way he said it, devoid of any drama or showmanship. Just as the truth sunk in, the audience grew quiet, the laughter abruptly ceasing. But then what? What was to follow would challenge everything they believed about faith, pain, and, in the hushed anticipation of redemption, the audience sat, enveloped in a silence so profound it seemed to be holding its breath, waiting for something momentous to occur. However, Keanu remained silent, finding no need for words. He simply sat there, his fingers still, gently poised upon the cross, neither concealing nor ostentatiously revealing it. Feeling a twinge of uncertainty, as if she might have overstepped, the host shifted uncomfortably in her seat. She let out a strained chuckle. "Well, that took a dark turn," she remarked, attempting to lighten the mood. "Returning to comfortable topics, perhaps we ought to discuss stunts, or puppies, or something less serious," he said. A few uneasy chuckles rippled through the audience, but they died away quickly. The mood had shifted. Now, something more profound was emerging beneath the screen's surface. The narrator's voice reappeared, prompting the question, what does it truly signify to possess? Trusting silence to bear the weight of pain, without allowing it to fester into bitterness, Keanu never. He maintained he never shared sermons in writing, yet his life served as a testament. The story unfolded, the screen shifting to black and white, revealing flashbacks not sourced from movies, but from a genuine scene of Keanu Reeves at a cemetery, standing solitary at his daughter's memorial, his gaze lost in thought. His hands, tightly gripping the sleeves of his coat, betrayed the emptiness gnawing at him, a man consumed by grief. Years passed in a flash, and one day he found himself on a New York subway, blending in with a crowd of unfamiliar faces. He sat hunched in a corner, his head tilted at a subtle angle, as though intently hearing something. In a world inaudible to others, a burden is borne, a weight carried solely by oneself. Due to their efforts to appear strong, yet faced with a world that leaves them with no other option, testimonies abound. Soundscape, once more, this time with the addition of overlapping layers, featuring a crew member on location. He was always punctual, never voicing any complaints. One day, however, he observed that I was limping and he offered me his chair, but I was merely a background worker, a nurse like my mom. As my loved one was nearing the end of their life, we were both in the same hospital. He spent 15 minutes with us, never mentioning his fame, simply being there as a man present in the moment. He was wearing a hoodie, his face obscured when he quietly covered the cost of my brother's surgery. There were no interviews, no press releases. I only learned about it because back in the studio, the host, with a strained smile, leaned closer to Keanu and said, "You know, people really enjoy. They say romanticizing suffering makes us more profound, more human. But in my view, pain is pain, that's for sure. It doesn't offer any wisdom, it just causes destruction." Keanu chuckled humorlessly, but remained silent, simply listening with that same unwavering, receptive openness. She was there not to debate, but simply to observe. The host sighed and waved her hand dismissively, as if to say, "Look, you wear a cross that looks good, but you don't genuinely believe it holds any significance, do you? It's just a fashion statement, a symbol, right?" In the waiting room, Keanu gradually shifted his gaze to her. His voice remained calm, yet held a hint of a subtle shift that hadn't existed previously, something I'm not donning for style's sake. I stated that I wear it as a reminder, for the sake of forgiveness, for his words weren't theatrical. They carried the weight of lived experience, as if he'd been speaking them constantly. On numerous occasions, in the absence of any observers, the camera focused on him in the darkness. This time, the necklace seemed more than just an object. It appeared to be a narrative unfolding, a story the world was. As she just started to read, the host fell quiet. She opened her. Then, after briefly opening his mouth, he closed it. The audience fell silent. No phones buzzing, no restless shifting. Only the narrator's voice reappeared, echoing once again in a world filled with laughter. Fixated on boisterous pronouncements, there's an unsettling yet reverent quality about someone who simply elects to live what their view is that Keanu simply inhaled and exhaled without contributing anything further. The host cleared her throat and offered another smile, but it felt strained this time, as if something was beginning to falter. The stage was set, but unbeknownst to everyone, the person who ridiculed. He was on the verge of disclosing a revelation that would dramatically alter the show's trajectory. In her personal life, the show resumed after the commercial break, yet a palpable shift had occurred. The studio held a different atmosphere. The audience, previously eager to erupt in laughter at the slightest provocation, now sat with wide, attentive eyes. Hearts were unusually focused. Even the illumination seemed gentler, as if the cameras, realizing this upcoming segment wasn't planned. The host returned to her chair, her gaze fixed on. Though composed, her demeanor lacked its former ease. A smile graced her lips, but it didn't quite convey genuine happiness. Her gaze flickered from Keanu to her hands, one of which shook ever so slightly. She attempted to brush it off with a laugh, but her voice faltered. "Okay," she murmured, more to herself than anyone else. "Let's discuss something genuine," Keanu stated, remaining still and patiently awaiting a response. With a steady foundation and poise for action, the host inhaled deeply and leaned in, her voice softening. Now, without the usual lively performances from when I was younger, she started. "I remember praying every night, closing my eyes squeezed shut, and I prayed to God, begging Him to make me ordinary. I didn't even comprehend what ordinary truly meant. I wondered if I were more like everyone else, I wouldn't constantly feel fear and a sense of being wrong." The audience sat, yet the silence had transformed, no longer heavy with tension, but imbued with a sacred quality. She continued to speak, her eyes vacant. "Right now, I'm pleading, please don't send me to hell, just let me be sufficient. My state of being, but nothing transpired. I persisted in anticipation, yearning for a signal, a voice, any indication, even a momentary silence. Ultimately, I ceased questioning and found myself laughing at the whole absurdity of it all. The fervent pleas whispered within the pages at the hearts of those who still held on to faith. I told myself, it's All fiction is simply a comfort blanket for those who struggle to cope with reality. She chuckled softly, her laughter devoid of mockery. But perhaps I didn't smile at your belief. Keanu, maybe I was laughing at my own suffering. Keanu regarded her with kindness, devoid of any judgment or pity, only compassion in his eyes. The camera lens focused on his face as he lowered his voice to speak softly. No individual experiencing pain during prayer is ever solitary. Even if you weren't consciously aware, someone was always listening. For a fleeting instant, nothing stirred. A woman in the crowd dabbed at her eyes, while another gasped, her breath caught in her throat. The host's composure wavered, her carefully constructed mask slipping ever so slightly. Every second, I used to believe that when there was silence, it indicated no one was paying attention. She murmured. Perhaps I simply lacked the ability to listen, as the camera slowly pulled back. They were simply there, no spotlight illuminating them, no dramatic music accompanying their presence. Just two individuals, unfiltered and authentic. And exposed before a massive audience, Keanu remained silent. Words weren't necessary. The host gazed at him intently, offering a barely perceptible nod as if to express gratitude or, perhaps I'm still present. The narrator's voice murmured softly, contemplative at times. The most challenging aspect of recovery begins with acknowledging your need for it, and often the most potent declaration is this admission itself. Was merely being truthful, yet that instance of openness was a world away from me. And unbeknownst to everyone in the studio, something even more significant was happening behind the scenes. Something even more explosive was about to unfold, and the cameras wouldn't be able to capture the intensity of what was to come hours after the program's broadcast. Videos of Keanu's calm demeanor rapidly went viral across the internet. The host's voice shook, reflecting the stunned silence that had descended upon the studio. Everything felt genuinely unique, something irreplaceable. Though it appeared manufactured, the truth was beginning to unravel, as a covert video captured by someone behind the scenes revealed. Initially, it spread across social media, appearing to be nothing more than the typical back and forth between producers during it. Commercial interruption, but suddenly a distinct, strong voice pierced through with "We desire God. We need to prod him," the voice stated. "She has to make him respond. That's the key. He's the one who drives the clips," a voice stated. Another voice responded. "Are you certain he won't retaliate?" "Precisely why it's preferable," was the reply. The video rapidly gained widespread attention. Initially, it appeared to be merely another piece of behind-the-scenes gossip, but shortly thereafter, a previous producer came forward during a live broadcast, addressing the camera directly and appearing visibly. Despite my nervousness, I remained determined and worked on that show for 3 years. There was constantly unexpressed directives, occasionally committed to writing, were sometimes used to target individuals who discussed matters of faith. It wasn't driven by a desire for knowledge, but rather by a focus on provoking responses, particularly from spiritual guests, which is what the network aimed for. He desired greater intensity, more engagement, so he paused, then included, "I saw the script." Tonight's episode's notes specified they intended for her to pursue Keanu. Hard screenshots. Internal memos outlined joke suggestions designed to elicit provocative responses and inspire creative prompts. As a direct response to the hashtag #RespectFaith, which quickly gained traction within hours. What began as a straightforward interview had transformed into a seemingly orchestrated ambush, though the plan had ultimately failed because Keanu hadn't. He hadn't engaged, he hadn't raised his voice, he hadn't even made an effort to succeed. He had merely remained. As the online storm intensified, more and more voices chimed in, including actors, musicians, and individuals from diverse backgrounds. Within life's journey, tranquility holds immense power. Faith doesn't require boisterousness to be effective. How potent was the respect he commanded, this man who embodied more grace and quietude than. Throughout its entire run, The show resonated with viewers of all backgrounds, even those without religious affiliations. Not supporting particular belief systems, but advocating for the freedom to believe, the atmosphere had changed, and the host remained silent for a. Although there were no posts and no comments, a tweet unexpectedly surfaced on her account late that evening. Sometimes, things that happen on live TV aren't planned, they're just real life. Tonight, for instance, I experienced, I'm human, and I'm still grappling with the implications of this. The comments poured in, some expressing anger, some showing leniency to many, simply sought an answer to one crucial query. Why did backstage leaks persist? A previous assistant shared. They informed us that Keanu wouldn't be making any noise, stating that he was. While they were too courteous to directly oppose him, they hadn't anticipated that his reticence would speak volumes. News outlets. The narrative was taken up by journalists, who fiercely discussed it. Faith leaders offered their perspectives, and psychologists were sought out for commentary on morning shows. Examines the emotional consequences of moral ambiguity in contemporary media platforms. Satirical programs addressed it, yet with a peculiar air of respect, conceding it's. That was weird, but a strange feeling came over us, causing us to abruptly stop laughing amidst the pandemonium. Keanu remained silent. Despite remaining silent in public, with no interviews, statements, or quotes, he shared one thing: a single post. Imagine a picture with a cross placed atop a shut book, without any accompanying text. The post simply displayed. More than 6 million people shared the post daily, and in the comments section, individuals offered their own unique perspectives on the quiet warriors. Though the book is finished, its message endures, a beacon of faith amidst trials. As the conversation progressed, a deluge of opinion pieces emerged from every angle. While some applaud Keanu's calmness, others condemn the show's ethical choices, and a significant number of viewers. Delving into the profound cultural yearning for meaning in a society that frequently ridicules faith, the host ultimately, when interviewed by a different network, she appeared weary, devoid of her usual allure. Her voice was subdued. I had an anticipated feeling. I truly didn't want to, but he refrained from arguing or making fun of me. He simply, I listened, and the experience had an unexpected impact on me, something I wasn't ready for, as it marked the start of. The interview had sparked a cultural shift, but when Keanu reappeared on stage for his next live broadcast, an event occurred that was beyond the capture of any camera, script, or social media platform. Upon the network's swift action, barely a week after the initial interview broadcast, a second appearance was confirmed. Keanu Reeves is back, but this time the promotional approach is unique. No sarcastic quips, no attention-grabbing slogans, just the assurance of a meaningful dialogue that progressed. As night descended, the studio overflowed, with lines stretching all the way around the block. Individuals bearing signs, not as a declaration of dissent, but as a testament to their quiet presence. Keanu emphasizes that faith isn't a weakness. There's a quiet, powerful energy within. Electricity isn't like it used to be, when everyone would hold back their laughter. Now it's as if a momentous occasion was about to transpire. A collective gasp of anticipation hung in the air as Keanu stepped into the studio. Just as he had previously, he remained quietly composed, still wearing the same crucifix. With visible nervousness, the host greeted him, her voice soft and soothing as she addressed him. A touch of vulnerability laced her voice as Keanu. She started, "Thanks for coming." He responded with a nod, offering a slight smile and saying, "Thanks for the..." She began the invitation with a gentle inquiry, asking about his feelings on matter. Following the conclusion of the final interview, before he had a chance to respond, something peculiar occurred. The lights spasmed, not a gradual fading but a sudden, intense burst, the monitors behind. For a fleeting instant, they malfunctioned, causing the audience to gasp softly. A sound technician inclined. He moved forward into the booth, and then an absolute hush fell. The microphones went dead, the lights extinguished. As the lights faded to almost black, the studio's hum silently disappeared for a full 10 seconds. An absolute silence descended upon the entire group, so profound it seemed otherworldly. Keanu remained motionless, simply sitting, with his hands calmly resting in his lap, the cross beneath him faintly illuminated by the emergency lights. The host gazed at him. An icy silence gripped the audience. Not a single person stirred. Not a word was spoken. Even the crew appeared uncertain. The question of intervention arose, and suddenly everything returned to normal. The lights steadied. The sound stabilized. The screens returned, refreshed, but a shift had occurred. The host sat in bewildered silence. Her eyes filled with tears, but not out of fear, rather from an internal, deeper source. She looked at Keanu, her voice trembling. "I don't understand what just happened," she stammered. Keanu gazed at her. He stated softly, with quiet conviction, that it wasn't about prevailing in an argument. Concerning a touch that resonated with the soul, and for a fleeting instant, the world held its breath. The audience remained silent. No applause, no shouts, they simply sat alongside him with her. It was as though, for a single, fleeting moment, every individual in the room shared a collective memory. A forgotten serenity, a palpable presence, a sense of reverence, all conveyed through the narrator's voice. Sometimes, there are occurrences that defy logical explanation, events that science may struggle to comprehend. Attempt to categorize it as a malfunction, a coincidence, or a glitch, but consider the possibility that it's none of those things. Imagine, if only for a fleeting moment, the world surrendering to something. Later technicians, unaware of the true cause, would attribute the silence to a system restart in. Overvoltage was considered a studio glitch, but nobody fully accepted that explanation, not following what they. I saw in her gaze a reflection of the way Keanu remained still, as though he had anticipated it all along. Following a sensation, the clip plunged into 10 seconds of blackness, then emerged after another 10. A stretch of silence, unprecedented in the show's history, would garner the most views, not due to any spoken words, but rather, as everything in that instant comprehended what seemed like a simple technical error was about to evolve into one of the most rewatched, scrutinized, and intensely personal videos never before seen online, and what Keanu. The video, upon reaching even the most hardened souls, would surely evoke a powerful response. That 10-second quiet moment from the live performance went viral online. The topic dominated every conversation. Talk shows repeatedly aired it. Analysts dissected it frame by frame, and podcasts devoted entire episodes to it. Some called it a metaphorical glitch, while others insisted it was a divine intervention, but undeniably, it had transformed people. Millions bore witness to it. Repeatedly, they revisited the event, not to grasp its meaning, but to relive the profound emotions it evoked, that peculiar sense of stillness, that inexplicable serenity amidst a world perpetually in discourse. Keanu's actions spoke louder than any words ever could. He didn't feel the need to make a formal statement. He refrained from explanation in 2 interviews, choosing instead to only post a single photograph of a wooden object. A well-used book, its pages closed, lay upon a cross, its weight resting peacefully atop it. The caption, "At times, silence holds the most potent response, needing no viral trend to amplify its impact." It bypassed the need for hashtags, organically capturing the hearts of people. The host shared her own message. The next day, she appeared without makeup, with no artificial lighting, simply gazing directly into her phone's camera. Her voice was distinct and gentle. "I was clueless about my actions that night, convinced I was in command." Although victory was the intended outcome, he didn't actively pursue it. Instead, he simply created a space, a moment of stillness, and perhaps, just perhaps, God's voice was heard. To me that evening, and I paused my laughter long enough to hear. To everyone's astonishment, the internet didn't reject her. Instead, it welcomed her with open arms because of the way people observed in her collapse not vulnerability, not a descent, but an outpouring of honesty, a moment that reflected. Shortly after a wave of something started, the hashtag "My faith is not a fault" gained traction. Social media isn't solely about protesting Neo, but rather serves as a platform for individuals of diverse viewpoints to share their perspectives. Numerous tales began to flow in, and one woman shared, "I ceased wearing my necklace. Following a friend's ridicule, I simply put it back on. It was a teenager I'd never held any faith in. Perhaps, just perhaps, I could start to believe in peace." A man from Brazil, my mother used. Whenever she asked me to pray for her, I'd always roll my eyes. Today, though, I express my gratitude for her churches and mosques. Synagogues and meditation groups alike echoed the sentiment. Faith doesn't require loud proclamations, while news networks. Experts were brought in, and some attempted to explain the brief moment of silence as a technological issue, perhaps a voltage drop or a software glitch. Some misfired, but others had a more profound impact. According to one neurologist, the body reacts to that clip, similar to its effect on sacred music, induced a slowed heartbeat and cortisol reduction. The experience it evoked had a profound impact. According to a therapist, speaking on a physiological level, our bodies aren't accustomed to people. Simply allowing the moment to be, without resistance, served as an emotional reset. Culturally, the focus shifted from agreement or disagreement to a shared act of remembrance, recalling something we had collectively lost sight of. That elegant presence and authenticity don't necessitate loudness when back in the recording studio. The host quietly exited the program without any scandal or media frenzy. She simply made a public announcement. Certain discussions hold greater significance than the content itself, as expressed with gratitude towards Keanu. While he didn't offer a public response, a photograph surfaced a day later. A lit candle sat next to a folded message that simply read, "Your voice was acknowledged." The storyteller came back for a last thought, noting that Keanu Reeves hadn't attempted to. He spoke without confrontation, his voice remaining calm. He bore his pain, refusing to wield it as a weapon, and in a world consumed by. He emphasized, amidst the commotion, faith isn't a sign of weakness, silence, and indeed, can be sacred. As the concluding scenes unfolded, a montage. A child confined to a hospital room observed the video clip and softly murmured, "That's the essence of calmness, a father's embrace." He and his daughter, both adorned with crosses, stood at the airport as a silent group of onlookers assembled on a nearby rooftop, their phones silenced. Simply breathing, and then Keanu, solitary, strolling through a peaceful expanse. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting its last rays behind him, he carried the cross, resting lightly upon his chest. Perhaps this narrative wasn't truly about television, or even Keanu. Perhaps this marked the start of something entirely different. A stirring within us all. A kind of faith that speaks volumes without ever raising its voice.